Hello, Dr. Flight here. We're going to talk in this segment about the product life cycle and market entry. During the product life cycle, we'll review the different stages of the product life cycle from introduction to growth, the shakeout stage, maturity, and then decline. And so the focus then of this segment will be to talk about the characteristics of each of those 5 stages and how firms should react to those as they come into the marketplace, but then also as the product diffuses through the market over time and goes through each successive stage of the product life cycle. As we begin the segment on the overview of the product life cycle, I'd like to spend a little bit of time talking about what happens before the product launches during the pre-launch phase of the product development process. During a pre-launch stage, there is a pre-announcement typically made in which the firm that's launching the product, developing the product, makes an announcement or multiple announcements to the marketplace in order to accomplish a number of goals. First, when a pre-announcement is made, the firm is able to gauge interest from the marketplace in terms of how likely they are to receive the product and buy the product. Also, we are able to start to solicit orders or pre-orders, people who would like to buy the product early or have an advanced copy of the product. It's something that we can do. The pre-announcement also works as a leverage point for investors. This is super important because growth, of course, or investment dollars are often tied into perceived growth that the company will have over the next time period, or in the future anyways. And so when somebody announces that a new product is going to be launched, investors get excited. So alerting financial markets is important for that. And then also, we also want to watch, just like we watch our market and see how they react, we also want to get a feel for our competitors as well. We want to get an understanding of how they will react, whether they will be very defensive or whether they will try to match our actions or whether they will retreat. So watching our competitors is important in this period of time as well. In addition to the pre-announcement, during pre-launch, we also are engaging in our marketing efforts to set up and arrange our distribution networks. So we need to know who will sell and carry our product. We need to know how our products will be shipped. We need to know who will distribute it or wholesale it. If we are using a buyer's or seller's agent or any other intermediaries, those are established and arranged, and all of those details are finalized. We finalize our production schedules and our operation capacities. We schedule out our raw material and ingredient purchases and things of that nature. We also, by this stage, have a communication plan typically designed, and we are engaging in and purchasing media buys. The production of our advertisements and such are in place. Development of the website and the social media networks are in place. And sometimes we perform what's called a market test during the pre-launch stage. The market test is expected to test the marketing plan of the product by launching the product into a very small market. So we'll actually produce product, launch it into a small market like a slow rollout would do, and then we gauge and we measure the effectiveness of the marketing plan in order to make changes and things of that nature before the product goes to the full market. So that's what a market test is. There are several different ways to actually conduct a market test, but that's done during the pre-launch stage as well. Now, moving forward, there's we get into the early stages of the of the launch cycle. And we have our pre-launch efforts where we're spending a lot of money and not really a lot of sales are coming in quite yet. In fact, we have this pre-launch period right in here where we haven't launched the product, but we're ramping up our marketing and distribution costs, and those expenditures start to grow. Once the product actually launches during the early growth or introduction stage, during this early period, we don't expect that sales will necessarily be huge, but we do expect them to increase at an increasing rate. So we have this convex portion of the product life cycle. At the same time, though, we're spending a huge amount of money on building awareness and maybe trials. We have to maybe, if we're doing a penetration price strategy, we are lowering our price. We have a low price entering the marketplace. And so we're spending a lot of money to educate the market on our product and actually get the product launched. So this bulge right here in our expenditures at this period of time is something that's called a beachhead. It's the beachhead part of this process. Notably, when we talk about the beachhead, we refer to it as a heavy expenditure that is involved in getting the product rolled out or launched. If you remember back when you think about diffusion of innovations, there's a parameter that's specified for these types of expenditures. And it's important that once these expenditures are made, a lot of times they can be eliminated or dropped dramatically because social connections and social interactions start to take the place of company-initiated communications. So once social interactions help sell the product, then the beachhead goes down, the expenditures go down, and the beachhead goes away. But the steep rising expenditures curve in this period go up when sales are increasing at an increasing rate in that portion of the introduction. So we haven't reached the growth stage typically yet. Definitely starts during the pre-launch announcement when we start to expend money and build awareness on the product. The key here is as we're developing a plan for getting the word out, key question that we'll have to think about is when do we stop our large expenditures and when do we know inertia has been overcome. So we want to get the ball rolling, but we also want to know when the ball is sufficiently rolling on its own. In other words, when are sales taking off on their own? And this is typically in the early part of the growth stage that'll happen. So speaking of the different stages of the product life cycle, there are typically, a lot of times, traditionally we'll think of them as being four, where there's the introduction, the growth stage, mature, and decline. But there's also a shakeout period that has been defined as well, where a lot happens and is marked by strict competition, lots and lots of price competition, and then competitors dropping out, weaker competitors dropping out who can't handle the low margins they're going to be getting from their product because of the price competition that takes place, and then eventually moves into the mature stage of the product life cycle. So during the introduction then, the product is brought to the market and awareness is developed there. Growth stage indicates a rapidly growing market in terms of sales, unit sales, and at the same time we have a lot of competitors that begin to come into the marketplace because they see profit opportunities exist there. After this fierce period of time of competition during the shakeout period, we enter the mature stage, stage where the market settles down, the product is fairly well known, competitors don't change so much at that point, and then we fall into the decline stage where companies have to choose whether they want to stay in the product line or harvest it or abandon the product and move on to other things. So a number of changes have to take place then, or do take place, as we think about these different product life cycle elements. So during introduction, the growth rate begins slowly but then grows during introduction. A lot of technological changes and product design issues take place, but we have very few competitors. And as it may be, you may be aware, profitability is negative because we're spending so much money on the beachhead to be able to get the ball going. During the growth stage, the growth rate, obviously it grows, or it wouldn't be called the growth stage of the product life cycle. Some technological changes are taking place, but what is really notable here during the growth stage is the increase in competitors. Competitors or followers will come in now recognizing that there's profit opportunities, and they'll want to become part of the growing trend, which of course is natural. Once the beachhead expenditures decline, then we see a lot of profitability take place. During the shakeout period, we have companies leaving. We have companies that can't handle the pressure of selling by price. The companies are trying to differentiate themselves, but bottom line is they haven't quite done it well enough yet. So you have a lot of copycat versions of the product available. And again, those that don't have the long-term expectations for the market, they leave and move on to other things. During the mature stage, profits remain high for those who stay in the product category. There's a limited amount of technological change. The product itself isn't evolving as much at this point in time, but companies will start to have to differentiate themselves through services or product augmentations. So there's the primary product, and then what they'll do is start offering added services like warranties or other features that could be used with the product, complementary products and so forth, to help buttress or support the primary product in and of itself. So during this stage, we have to continue to get people excited about the product, and especially in rebuys or repurchases, the repeat purchase rate, and so on. We might also which changes this a little bit. We might also offer a second generation product that would replace the first generation product. So if we think about product replacement strategies, this is oftentimes when we start to do it at the end of the shakeout period, just before maturity starts, or at some point in the early maturity stage, we'll replace our original product and start offering a second generation product and third generation and so on and so forth, with the goal being to try to eliminate or avoid the decline stage altogether. So a firm that is looking for growth is probably not going to invest or stay in a product that's in the decline stage. We often want to think about harvesting or eliminating this particular product, or moving on, selling it off to somebody else, and moving forward like that. All right, so some other issues as we think about these 5 different stages of the product life cycle. We know that in the introduction we want to stimulate primary demand. If it's in the introduction stage, then we're talking about a new market typically that's being developed, or a new group of consumers that are buying a new product for the first time. That'd be primary demand that's being developed. And so, so as a pioneer, as a company that's introducing the product themselves for the first time, then stimulating that primary demand is the key. We also want to make sure we understand what type of pricing strategy we want to be able to engage in, whether we want to set the price high in a skimming strategy or set the price low in a penetration strategy. Then the other thing is, since it's a new market, since it's a new product, we're probably going to be fairly selective in where we place the product. So in other words, the product doesn't have to be everywhere. It has to be, or will probably be in limited locations, because our distribution networks don't suggest a need for a real intensive distribution strategy. So we'll probably take the product to a few select locations to sell, and then we'll increase that as the product life cycle carries on over time. So in the growth stage, we're building share. So we want to be able to gain market share dramatically. And again, remember, we've got lots of competitors coming in. So we're going to be very defensive, and we're going to be very aggressive in trying to take market share or selective demand away from our competitors and bring it into, be a seller ourselves so that we can gain market share there. We're going to, because of the competitiveness, we will have to begin to focus on selling by price, and we're going to have to get our product out to more people and get that availability percentage up. So the types of places we sell our product will increase. We'll get it into the hands of more people using an intensive distribution type of a strategy. We'll continue that through the shakeout period. We want to continue to build share, so the same type of strategies are there. Again, very defensive and aggressive behavior towards our competitors at this point, because they're trying to do the same thing, and the volume of competitors has increased by this point. In the mature stage, we want to hold on to the market share that we have. And we want to continue to have the product available in lots of different places. We want to concentrate on features. So we want to be able to really focus on differentiating our products from those from those other competitors that are still there. And again, we're going to engage in product augmentations and really focusing on the services and the different types of features that could go along with the product that aren't necessarily the main product itself. And again, at this point, we want to maintain our market share amount, and then we go into the decline stage, and we want to begin to divest and reduce the length of our product lines. We want to harvest, which would be we want to go ahead and sell off areas of our product that are still there, and so forth. So those are the various stages. Those are the kind of the elements of the various stages that we have to offer. A key concept that we need to bring up at this point is something called discontinuity. Discontinuity is a term that's used in product innovation and characteristics of a product. When we describe a product, we might call it continuous or discontinuous. And this falls on a range between one and the other. And continuous adaptations or continuous innovations in products are products that are quickly accepted by the marketplace, and they can fall in the range of continuous for the consumer and also continuous for the firm. So the idea here is that if you adopt a new product to either buy as a consumer, or if you adopt a new product to produce as a firm, if it requires you to do very little to change your current behavior, then it's continuous. Your behavior continues unchanged as it was before. So as you can imagine, products that are like that will be accepted in the marketplace very quickly. On the other end of the scale, we have discontinuous products. Discontinuous products are ones that require the consumer or the firm to undergo a lot of behavioral change in order to use the product and adopt the product and accept the product into their lives. So if I have a product that I'm launching, and in order for a person to use it, they have to radically change how they behave, how they live, then that would be discontinuous because the behavior is discontinued from before. Now it's important because discontinuous products um, are, are are very slow to be adopted in the marketplace. So the product life cycle will have a very, very, very long introduction stage, a very slow growth period, and then eventually over time the product will grow and then go into maturity and then decline. But the early stages of the product life cycle are very, very elongated. So these would be products that are very slow to be accepted in the marketplace. Continuous, highly continuous products have a very rapid introduction period and a very rapid growth period over time, and then they may have a longer maturity period and a longer decline period, but the shape of the curve is accentuated, and it's very, very high at the beginning of the curve in terms of sales, and is completely different than you'd think of for a discontinuous product. Okay, so the product life cycle, even though we talk about the different stages and we talk about the stages over time, the stages aren't identical for all products. Some products have a very short introduction stage, some have very long ones, and so on and so forth throughout the product life cycle. If you can think about a fad item or an item that is very, very hot that becomes popular very quickly and then dies very quickly, the time that the product is in the marketplace, that the whole product life cycle may be very, very short. There may be almost no introduction period. It might just be growth and then decline. So each product kind of has a different characteristic as far as that goes. But when we think about discontinuity, we just a couple points to finish this up. We know that it inversely affects the rate of adoption. So if the level of discontinuity is high, the rate of adoption then is very low. And we also know that discontinuity happens at two different levels. As I alluded to, it can happen in the firm. So the organization, if a product is new to the firm, then the new processes that are required to produce the product could create new behaviors the firm has to go under or operate under, therefore being discontinuous for them. And so if you're trying to do something new in your company, if it's radically different from what they're already doing, what you're already doing, then other people in your company will be slow to adopt this new process. So this is like an internal management issue that we really deal with in discontinuity. And then, of course, in the marketplace as well, if the product's radically new and very different from what people expect to see, it's going to take a lot longer for the product to become accepted. So we have these different categories of new products that are available that you most likely have seen before, where we have products changes that customers may not even see in cost reductions. These are new to the market and new to the company, but not dramatically new. So we have low newness to the company in the marketplace. And then on the other end of the spectrum here, we have new to the world products that would be things that are new for the company to do and things that are new for the market to accept, like products that are new to the market and to the firm. These up in this corner here are going to be much more slow to be accepted in the marketplace. Repositionings are things that it's a new way a product could be used for the customer. So there's not really much change in the product, but there is change in how the customer uses it. So in this case, a repositioning would reflect something that's fairly new for the customer, but not something fairly new at all for the company. Then we have new product lines. And then we have revisions and improvements to different products. So we have in this corner continuous innovation. So anything kind of in this region down here would be something that's fairly continuous. Up here, we have discontinuous innovations. So innovations that require a lot of behavioral change on the degrees of the company and the marketplace. Here we have, in this corner down here, these would be fairly discontinuous for the customer only, but not necessarily um, for the firm. And up here, if we had a product up here, it would be something that could be completely new for the company, but it may be a product that already exists and one that the market is familiar with. So if a product already exists, but we want to start to offer it, it might be new to us as a firm, but not necessarily new to the marketplace. So this is where that continuum works relative to our different types of products that we offer in the marketplace. And so this is just a little bit of a discussion that deals with where different type of products innovations lie and how rapidly they become accepted in the marketplace, which is reflected in the product life cycle, and how quickly we go through the multiple stages of the product life cycle. To wrap this up, we have different definitions of products and then different objectives that we have relative to our product type. So you remember the new to the world products, improvements or revisions to existing products as well. If we want to maintain our position as a product innovator, we need to be innovative, right? We need to do new things for the marketplace and for ourselves. So that would be represented in a lot of these characteristics of products that we're entering into the marketplace. We also think about defending our position and market share during the growth period, right? In that shakeout period, we want to be able to do that. So we're gonna after we introduce new to the world products, once we have competitors, we're going to begin to make minor changes and innovations and improvements. And in that shakeout period, think about cost reductions and reducing our product. Sometimes our objectives are to create new markets. Getting footholds in future markets, designing markets, and looking at a market that's growing, we want to jump into. So additions in existing product lines, repositionings would be taking advantage of markets that we're not necessarily in yet, that would be new to us. If we have a new to the world product, we're very often wanting to take advantage of some type of a technology we have available to ourselves. We also think about other issues as cash generating, distributing our product, and then also liquidating excessive capacity as options and objectives that we may have when we start thinking about developing new products and entering the marketplace with some specific objectives in mind. Okay, so as we think about, or this segment, wrapping this up, we talked about the pre-launch concepts, the beachhead, the launch stage. We talked about the 5 different PLC stages and the characteristics of each. We also introduced a very, very important concept called discontinuity, and then we finished with a quick review of some of the objectives that we have as we enter a new market with a new product.